he had a litany of different things that are an advantage. But there are some advantages to leaving home. There just are. You know, this is the way it is. You have your own place, do your own thing, have your own job, you know, all that kind of stuff. I used to tease my mother because my mother could do 2 or 3 dishes really well. She did the best fried chicken I've ever eaten, period. You know, some great spaghetti and all that. But other than she wasn't, you know, terrific. She wasn't, even though we came out of West Virginia, she was more of a city girl. She wasn't a southern girl. And her biscuits you could have used in the National Hockey League. Really, I mean, those are nasty little things, you know. I used to tease her. I said, you know, when I go down the interstate mall, I see the signs, home cooking, low pass. That's why I left home. It's a good, no. And she looked just like you do. Thanks, Mom. There are some advantages. There are a ton of disadvantages. You know, nobody's there to hold you and put cold cloths on your head when you're sick and that kind of thing. And when you need something washed like right now and then dried right now, you may have to run down to a separate place to do it. You don't have it right there in your house. There's a ton of things that are advantages and disadvantages for that. What we're going to talk about today is the first part of Daniel. Now, you're going to have a little bit of basics on Daniel. In the ancient world, you're going to find the Old Testament is dominated by a power triangle. If you remember the triangle of Egypt, Assyria, and then Babylon down here, you have got the triangle. There are these guys right here. Almost all of the Old Testament is concerned with those different countries. Okay? What you're going to have is the insurgence of Egypt at first. You're going to have that going through the captivity of the children of Israel. And then you're going to have Assyria up here with Nineveh, if you can remember Jonah and all that story and that kind of thing. Assyria is the meanest of the mean. If you've ever heard of mean type of civilizations, Assyria is it. Don't think that what you see on TV today as barbarous acts came from them. The Assyrians came up with that kind of thing. They are the original, I go out in the field and make a line and dare you to cross the line. I behead my enemies and stick them on poles to intimidate you. The idea was I want to intimidate you and win the war before the war even begins. They're the ones who perfected that. Okay, they're the meanest of the mean all the way around. So you have Assyria, then you're going to have Babylon whips up on them as well. So you're going to have the shift go from here to here, and then Babylon will actually fall to a group of folks from Media and Persia. We call them the Medo-Persian Empire. And so you're going to have that toward the end of this book as well. And so if you keep that in mind, you're going to be in a great shape. During this time that we're starting into Daniel, the thought pattern we have to realize is that the Jews have broken themselves into 2 different countries. After their main kings, you're going to have King Saul, King David, and King Solomon. After that, you're going to have 2 different countries. Both of them Jews, but different countries. Fought each other tooth and nail. You had the 10 tribes of Israel to the north called Israel. Their capital is Samaria. You're having the lower 2 tribes called Judah, and their capital is Jerusalem. The reason that we pay so much attention to Jerusalem and Judah is that is the line of Judah, that is the line that Jesus is going to come out of. And you're going to have this group in Israel up here as a mixture of Jewish folks and then also literally folks thrown in to that area that were eventually in the New Testament be called Samaritans or Samaritans. And the idea was they were mostly half-breed Jews that the Jewish folks were repelled from them. Even in the New Testament times, you didn't have, when they had festivals, you had to come out of the Sea of Galilee area and come down into Judah or Jerusalem. They would avoid coming through Samaria. They would go over to the Transjordan and come down, even in New Testament times, but they didn't want to put their pinkies on their dirt. It was so vile to them. And so you're going to have 2 different countries of Israel and Judah, both Jewish all the way, but fighting each other. So what you're going to have is those Assyrians finally whip up on Egypt at the Battle of Carchemish. We've talked about that in the last 2 months or so. And the idea was that they gained control. The Assyrians, they came down into the northern tribes to Samaria and wreaked havoc in Samaria. That's about 722 BC. Now you remember in BC we're going to be coming backwards in time, so to speak. So the lower the number, the further you're closer you're getting to us as far as that is concerned. And so the Assyrians look somewhat like these guys. Okay, that's one of their reliefs that they have. Those are supposed to be a bunch of helmets in the background and stuff. They show you how many of them there are. Okay, they're showing you some of their best weaponry and all that kind of thing. They came down, whipped up on Samaria, and took a ton of them captive. And what they didn't kill, they took them captive, and the Assyrians made really slaves out of people. Just what you would think of when you would think of slavery, that's what the Assyrians would do. They would wreak havoc with your population, take away everybody that they could. And then what they did with the empty land is they repopulated it with people that they had captured from other areas so that they would be kind of off kilter a little bit. They'd stick them in there, then they could rule them. But they would pull your people out, and then what they would do is take them out and sell them as slaves to other countries, or bring them back to Nineveh, up here, their hometown, and turn them into slaves there. The Assyrians are not nice folk all the way around. That's just plain old it. Now what you're going to have is a few years down the road, about 100, 150 years or so, the folks from Babylon get very powerful and come up and whip up and beat Nineveh to death, literally. Okay? Now Babylon is going to come down toward Samaria, Jerusalem, but pass it by because, you know, it's big. They're nothing to us. We're a big, powerful army. They're not so hot, whatever. We've got bigger things in mind called Egypt. And so the Babylonians came down, went clear down to Egypt, whipped up on Egypt as well. So now they control what we used to call the old Fertile Crescent, all the way around. The Babylonian Empire did all the Fertile Crescent all the way down to Egypt and back and forth. All the way back, a guy that we will know is called Nebuchadnezzar. He is the son of Nabopolassar. Nabopolassar, his dad, the king, got sick. And they know there's going to be a transition in power, so he just says, okay, I'm not going to attack Judah and that kind of stuff right now. I'll be back. And he does. He pulls his army, goes back. His dad does die. Nebuchadnezzar does become king. And in 605, he comes back with a vengeance. He needs this little land bridge because it is the toll booth. You can't go through this big Arabian desert. That's why you have a Fertile Crescent up here. Nobody goes through that. Everybody travels through this. And if you can control this little narrow area here, you can control everything coming out of a continent of Africa, going to anywhere else. That's the toll booth. And so he sees the advantage of that. So Nebuchadnezzar comes back in 605 and has a series of, I'm going to defeat Judah 3 times over. It's not just good enough for one shot. I'm going to nail them 3 times. The Babylonians, however, were not the Assyrians. They were total different mindset. They went all through their victories looking for talent. Now, you know, your kid may have come up under the Duke Talent Search thing, that TIP program or whatever they call it. It's where Duke loves to do that in the South. They go around trying to find high IQ kids and they start following them about 3rd or 4th grade. And they start following them up. And then if they get into junior high and they're still really advanced, they really start putting press on them so that you know those kids are the advanced, the gifted kids, okay? Those guys. And they start looking for it and start wooing them about the 10th grade. Come to Duke, come to Duke. Okay? That's what they do. That's what these guys were doing. These guys looked out and said, every time they came to town, and they did, 605, 597, 8 years later, and then 11 years later, in 586, they came, whipped up on Jerusalem, and took the new crop of kids. That's what they were looking for. They were looking for the gifted kids, and they took them back to Babylon, not to make them slaves. They took them back to Babylon to make them government workers, is what they did. They were taking the smartest of the smart, and took them back, train them up, and then use their brains. That's what they were doing. The older folks who were the elite, they would take back, and they would set them up and say, what do you do well? Well, I'm a silversmith. You know, I do good with this or that or whatever. Great. They would set them up. You're going to be happy here in exile. You're away from home, but we're going to set you up. So much so that it took 70 years that the children of Israel are going to be in Babylon. That is where you have the advent of the synagogue. They didn't have temples, so they needed some way to transfer the Hebrew language and the Hebrew culture, so they set up synagogues. And so the idea was, we're going to envelope you here, let you work, thrive, so that when they were able to go back under Cyrus, this is at the end of the sermon, they're able to go back. Only a pittance of people went back. They were set up in Babylon. It was great stuff. And they had 70 years to build their businesses, and they had third and fourth generations doing their businesses and all that. Things were good. Why go back? Okay? That was the idea. So you had the Babylonian Empire. They take them slaves back to Babylon, which, if you notice now, is Iraq. That's why we have all that history going on over there. And that's why it's so funny that we kind of drop in to thousands of years of history ignorantly and not knowing what we're dealing with over there. You know, Americans kind of, you know, what's going on? They have thousands of years of history that they're dealing with over there. Okay, ready? Now we drop into Daniel chapter 1, it'll make more sense. Here it comes. In the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, southern kingdom, remember, okay? Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon now, okay, he got to be king, came back to Jerusalem and besieged it. Good picture of it. Literally, besieging means I'm going to take you until you fall apart from the inside out. You're starving and all that kind of stuff. You finally give up. I come in, ransack the place, burn a bunch of stuff, and take everything we want back to Babylon. That's exactly what it looks like. Ready? And the Lord gave Jehoiakim of Judah into his hands, and I love where it says that he gave him into his hands. Realize all of this was predicted by multiple folks down the line. Jeremiah, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, all those prophets said, if you guys don't straighten up, get rid of idols and false worship, and worship the one true God, nastiness is on its way. Okay? God's going to let literally a whole A block. God doesn't bring it, but He allowed it. The whole A block is when you're playing football and you have a snot in the backfield somewhere, whether it's a quarterback or a running back who thinks they're hot stuff. Every once in a while it's good to just do a block where you really don't block. You just go, Olay! You got it, man. And just let him get creamed a couple of times. He'll respect the line way more in times future when you just go, Olay! He's gone. Okay? That's exactly what was happening with this. God said, I've been warning it, here it comes. Boom. God gave him into his hand, into Babylonian hands, and some of the articles of the house of God were carried away to the land of Shinar. That is going to be Babel. And of his little g, God. And he brought these articles in the treasure house of his God. So the last that these young kids, who are smart as smart, 605. Daniel is going to be taken out with 3 of his friends, but literally are taken out from their home, which were nice homes. These are going to be direct descendants of Hezekiah, the king that built a really nice tunnel with the water coming through from one end to the other, that big engineer type of king. They're descendants of his. And so they're pulled right off the top of society, the elite of society. And that's what they remember Jerusalem looking like when they left. Okay? Now, they're going to be, at least Daniel is going to be, in Babylon for the next 70 years. He is one of the only ones that goes from the first part of the captivity clear through the end of it and out the other end. Okay? He gets to live that long, and also in leadership for that long. The Babylonians loved this conquering. They made reliefs of this. These are the Jews who are being pulled out. Also, you get a really good look at their writing here. Cuneiform. Cuneiform was done by a wedge type of thing, and they place it in the clay at certain angles and stuff. That's how they did their language. This is the Chaldean language done in cuneiform. But it shows the Jews being led out. Also, they were made to play. They brought the musicians out, made them play with harps and their lyres, so to speak, and had to kind of cadence along the way. We'd get the same thing with the drum, and somebody doing cadence with the drum as they made them walk. Okay? And you're going to have the king instructed the master of his eunuchs. Okay? Now, we can get into that, we can't get into that. Okay? Ask me on the parking lot. It's as bad as you think. Okay? But the idea is he's going to literally make these guys' sole purpose in life is going to be government service. That's the whole idea. And to bring some of the children of Israel and some of the king's descendants and some of the nobles, pictures of those guys, okay, as they're being hauled by. Okay? Now, here we come. And the young men who were there had no blemish, but were good-looking, gifted in all wisdom, possessing knowledge, and quick to understand. Gifted kids, okay? That's the idea. The pressure that you have, not just going to university, but going to any kind of trade school, military, learning scheme of any kind, one of the things that is grabbed real quick is we want to change your thinking. We want to climb between your ears and start directing that thing up here a little bit, okay, between the ears. That's the idea. I want to get in that brain and work with what you're thinking. And those who had the ability to serve, okay, and the king's palace, in whom they might teach the language of the literature of the Chaldeans or the Babylonians, in other words. The idea is that thinking part, we want to have a hand in not just their education, but how they think, what they think. Don't think the world is not interested how your kids think. They are. They want to be between your ears. That is why the United States is changing over the last 60 years or so, because there's been a really concerted effort to climb between all of our ears and change the way we think about stuff. If you go back 50, 60 years and see literature and see how people wrote, just mainline people. Now, I'm not talking Hollywood or downtown New York, Madison Avenue. They've always been kind of avant-garde kind of folks. But now the whole nation thinks like Hollywood and downtown New York. Okay? That type of metro type of feel. I mean, you can get a kid in Terre Haute, Indiana, who wants to be, like Jay-Z or whatever. It's like, dude, this usually was way over there. I've told it several times of the architectural thing. Frank Lloyd Wright in the Midwest said it best, I think, especially about the Californians and stuff. He said, he was talking, because he's an architect, he said that he thought that the United States was on a tilt and everything loose slides into California. Okay, there we go. I want you to get, real quick, how he wants them to think. Just think of arriving from Jerusalem, which was an okay town. Okay, it was a metro field town. It was crammed in and stuff. But you arrive at the apex of Babylon, at the apex of their civilization. It was the most advanced city on the face of the planet. This is a little shot that was made in 1912 of the history of Babylon. And so what you're going to have, this is the actual layout of the city, is a metropolitan, huge city. Hundreds of thousands of people with the Euphrates River running right through the middle of it. That was their Achilles heel, by the way. Okay, Army Corps of Engineers nailed them on this one. But literally, the Euphrates River ran right through the middle of town, and they redirected it to make it a moat that went around most of the city itself. You're going to have the great Ishtar Gate, which you're going to see in a minute. And the procession street that went right through the middle, all the way to the temple at the end here, was designed to impress you. The same way Washington, D.C. is designed to impress anybody who comes to it, whether it's its own citizens or whether you're from a foreign land. D.C. is meant to impress. Like, whoa, this is pretty. That's the idea. And when you had those young kids coming, they're going to go down the processional here and look at a huge, major metropolitan area. And the first gate that they went through was the Ishtar Gate. It still exists today. It's in a museum in Berlin. They took it brick by brick down, brought it to Berlin, and recreated it so that you can actually see how big the thing was and how beautiful it is, especially those blue rocks and stuff that are indigenous to that area. It was a big deal. If you want to see a remake of it today, Saddam Hussein was trying to rebuild ancient Babylon when he got his demise, and now there's just as U.S. soldiers standing in front of their Ishtar Gate. Sorry, I had to throw that in. As you walk through the gate, you got to see one of the wonders of the ancient world, the Hanging Gardens. The Hanging Gardens was literally a building. It wasn't a hill. It was a building terraced over with all kinds of foliage falling off of it in the middle of a desert, so to speak, so it made a big deal. The idea was, I bet a shot of it right here from it, the idea of the Hanging Gardens was that one of the emperors in Babylon wanted to make his wife happy, and he married her. She was a person from the hills. And she was lonely. You know, it's like, man, it's all flat and dry and gross looking. I'll build you a hill. And so she could look out every day and look and see this big, huge mound of vegetation and stuff that looked like a hill. Actually, it's still, some of it still exists. You can see that the vegetation and stuff falls out. That's the Euphrates River beside it. But that is kind of like the foothills going into that particular building. It still has stuff growing out of it. That's the idea. Okay? It's not just pressure to change your thinking between your ears. They look for a change of living as well. And the king appointed them daily provisions, the king's delicacies, and wine which he drank. And 3 years of training for them so that at the end of that time they might serve before the king. Put them into college, for the most part. Here's your education. You've got to learn a whole new way of writing. You're used to Hebrew, running that little scrolly stuff and running it backwards. No, we're going to run it the other direction, and we're going to do it in cuneiform. Okay? We're going to learn a whole different mathematics scheme and stuff. We're way far advanced on that. We have astronomy going. We have all kinds of sciences and stuff. Goodness sakes, you've got to catch up, kids. It's going to take you 3 years to get up to speed. In fact, you're going to be able to read something like this. That was cuneiform in a way that you can actually transport it and have people read it. You know, it's kind of like, you know, reading around the barrel, so to speak. Okay? It's a whole different keg problem in universities, okay? This one you had to read it. There we go. Ready? Not only that, but the arts. These are actual artifacts, you know, from Babylon itself. The pottery, statues, gold stuff. This is Hammurabi, and this is a remake of it, so you can see what it actually looked like. But you can see, these folks were advanced all the way around. That was kind of the stuff that came out of that era. Ready? Not just pressure on thinking and living. They went deeper than that. It was worship as well. And now from those sons of Judah, there is going to be Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, okay, and Azariah. And to the chief of the eunuchs, they gave the name to Daniel, is he's going to be Belteshazzar, and then he's also going to have Hananiah as Shadrach, Mishael as Meshach, and Azariah as Abednego. Okay? So the idea is, I'm going to change your names. Now, the change your names were significant. Let me go through them real quick. David is going to have the name Daniel rather. Daniel means Elohim, or God, is my judge. That's what it means. They changed it to Belteshazzar, which that means, may Baal protect you. Not Elohim anymore. No, you're over here now. It's our God. And we want you to start thinking our way. And so your even name changes from Yahweh stuff and Elohim stuff for the Hebrew God. No, now you're a Baal type of person. And you're going to have Hananiah, which is Yahweh is gracious. We're going to change that to Shadrach, which means Aku, which is one of their minor gods, is exalted. You had Mishael, which is going to be, who is Elohim? Who is that Elohim? That's the idea. We're going to change that to Meshach, which is, who is Aku? See how they're changing? Okay? It's a little subtle, isn't it? Like a freight train. Okay? And Azariah, which is, Yahweh is my helper. Abednego is the servant of Nebo, another Babylonian god. You can see what they're doing to them. Even in their names, you're going to be changed over to believe like us now. That's the whole idea. We want your thinking, your living, and your worship to change. Sounds like university, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Now, I went a long time ago, and then they were doing it back then. I don't see why they should stop now. And they're on a roll. That is exactly what they're doing. They're changing the way that they even worship. Now watch what happens. You get a kid who has a faith far from home. And Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself. That doesn't come from a moment's notice. That is calculated way beforehand. That is built in by parents working with their kids, not being mean and awful. You're going to think like this. We're going to say, no, we're going to live it in front of you. It's going to make so much more sense to you. When you're seeing something done lousy, you're going to say, oh, no, that's not good at all. You know, there's nothing like Hollywood telling you how relationships ought to go when they can't put a marriage together more than 6 months. So, what do you got to tell us, really? You know, you get your marriage rates up there to 20, 30, 40 years. As a majority of folks, we'll start listening to you. You know, I'll tell you how to live. How many divorces you had? 45. It's like, that's not a real good confidence builder. Well, the idea is, Daniel purposed in his heart in advance, I still love Yahweh, one true God of Israel. I'm true to Him. Even though I'm transported to a different location, the God of my youth is my God. Period. That comes with back here, putting it in. There is nothing like being in the heat of a moment, hoping God will help you out. Okay? If you haven't purposed that you're not going to, say, drink and drive, the last time to figure that out is when you're with a bunch of friends and they're handing you cans and bottles or whatever, and they say, we all got to get home. Come on, let's take us home. And you're going, oh, if you purposed way back, I don't do this, then it kicks in, oh, I don't do this. We'll call for a taxi, or we'll have to suck up our pride and call Dad, or whatever. I can't get behind a wheel like this. Okay? The idea is that type of thinking and living is purposed beforehand. Daniel did just that. And so he would not defile himself with the portions of his king's delicacies. 2 reasons. Number 1 is it was non-kosher food. Okay? This is a bunch of stuff that the Jews would look at and go, no way! You know, good Jewish boy, you don't see a little circle K on it and stuff. It's not kosher. I'm not eating that stuff. It's not dedicated to Yahweh, the one true God of it. I'm not eating that. The other reason is all that food that the king had been offered to those false gods on their altars before it got to the king's table. This was really primo food. They offered it to their gods, and then it came to you. That's how the king got it. So both ways was just not nasty. He's not going to put up with that. And so he would not do it. Therefore, he requested of the chief eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Notice, kids, notice, he's smart. Daniel's no dummy. And he played the system. He did not just bull up, cross his arms, you can't make it. He says, no, I'm going to get permission to do this, and I'm going to make you guys even like what I'm doing. That's not dumb. There's a way of doing spiritual stuff that influences people, and there's a way that inflames people. And a lot of times we take our Christianity into the marketplace, into government, and inflame people rather than influence them. There's a way to do it and make them like it in the process. You got to know how to be winsome to win some. Okay? The idea is, okay, ready? Now, God had brought Daniel favor and goodwill to the chief of the eunuchs. Now, we get along. We have a working relationship already. Me as a teenager, you as a grown-up, we're getting along with this thing. And the chief of the eunuchs says, I love this. I fear the Lord King has appointed this food for you to drink. Why should you see your faces get worse than the other young men your age? Then they would endanger my head before the king. It's cover your own head. Okay, here we go. And so he's covered it and says, hey, if y'all guys look bad, I've got to get this food to you. You got to look healthy. If you don't look healthy, I'm the one who's going to take the smack for this thing. Daniel said to the steward, the chief of the eunuchs, he said over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, says, please test your servants for 10 days. Let us eat vegetables and water to drink. Now, don't get the vegan thing going on me here, okay? Kosher food included meat too. Okay, they could have eaten some meat, not this meat because it's offered to idols and stuff. But don't go that route when you're going out. Hey, Marge, you wouldn't be so fat. You didn't eat all that bad food. Veggies and water, veggies and water. No, I know, I've heard it all. Then let our appearance be examined before you, appearance for the young men, and eat the portion of the king's delicacies as you see fit, and so deal with your servants in order. Test us out. We're going to eat really good stuff while they eat all that fat and stuff all over the place, and then test us out in 10 days, see how we come out. So he consented to do it and tested them after 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, their features appeared better and fatter. I don't know what kind of veggies they were eating. But fatter, I love that. That's a great word. In flesh than all the other men who ate the delicacies. Now watch this. So the steward took their portions of delicacies and wine away to drink and gave them vegetables. See, I changed them and made them like it. The whole point is, if you live a godly life in front of people, this world is aching for a good example. If you live it in front of them, they'll ask you, how are you keeping your marriage together? How are you raising kids? My family's falling apart. How do you all seem like you're not just thriving, you look like you're actually enjoying yourself in the process? How do you go to church and come back happy rather than beat up and tore up? Okay? And there's churches that love to do that, and people love to brag. You know, I walk in and then I go sliding out the door because I'm so scrunched. By the time I leave, they stepped on my toes today. It's like, but did he lift you up after he stepped on your toes, or did he just leave you sleep? The idea is, there's a way of doing this so that you pull folks up and say, come on, we can make it another week. Let's do this kind of thing. That's exactly what was happening, the influence of faith. And it's not a word, I made it up. Faith for success. Okay, I checked it, there's no word like that, but in my universe there is. As for these four men, God gave them knowledge and skill in literature and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in visions and dreams. That's a foreshadow. You're going to get more of that as it comes. That's his big forte all the way around. But he gave all four of them knowledge and skill in literature and in wisdom. In those 3 years, they got it. Better than anybody else. They got it. They're not just dressed for success, they're faithed up for success. You ready? Now, at the end of the days, the king said that they all should be brought in. So the chief of the eunuchs brought them before Nebuchadnezzar, and the king himself interviewed them. You talk about final. Okay? There are some majors in college and especially graduate school that you cannot go out just with a dissertation. You have to have an oral exam. In other words, you have to stand front and center with a bunch of professors. One of the most hairy ones that I ever saw was a PhD that I knew in Clewiston, Florida, worked for the United States Sugar Corporation, which had a doctorate in biogenetics, and especially in plants and stuff. And his doctorate was, he wrote a dissertation, but his big thing was he sat in a chair looking at a covered table, just heaped over, covered table with a sheet over top of it. When the test was to start, they had 3 professors that sat behind it and pulled the sheet off. There were weeds all over that. They would reach in amongst the weeds and pull one out, and he had to be able, in Latin, to go through from seed to seed of that particular plant, knowing every name, everything about that plant. Is it a black-eyed Susie, or if it was a ragweed or whatever, be able to say, okay, here's how it starts out as a seed, here it germinates, here's what it looks like in all its forms. And he didn't know which one they were going to pick. He had to pick out 3 of them. Give it to me. And he had to be able to talk about sweating bullets. That's exactly what was happening. You're not just tested by a bubble sheet, bubble in answers. You have the king standing in front of you, testing you. Now, among them was none found like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, as they stood and served before the king. They were literally met at the time of the testing during crunch time with God Himself empowering. You want to be able to succeed in any kind of endeavor? Ask God to join you as you study, as you prepare, and as you stand there, say, Lord God, bring back to me what I diligently try to stick between my ears. Help me to be able to deliver at the right time, at the right place. And He does just that. If you didn't study, then pray for grace. That's what I tell kids. I give it down. Didn't think, pray for grace. Yeah, I'm never in favor. There you go. In all matters of wisdom and understanding which the king examined them, they were found to be 10 times better. Now watch this word, all, because it comes back to life. You ready? They were 10 times better than all magicians and astrologers that were in his realm. You know what the magicians and astrologers would eventually be called under Daniel's leadership? The Magi. Sound familiar? Like Christmassy kind of stuff? And we're going to deal with that as it goes along. They literally are above everything. Faith excels, but I want you to realize there's a cost involved. We're almost done. The cost involved is none of those older Babylonians liked newcomers coming in, displacing them from being their authority. Nobody likes that. The locals don't like it when a newbie comes in and shows them up. And that's exactly what's happening right here. Yikes. Faith excels. Lastly, faith for the long haul. And Daniel continued until the first year of Cyrus. That's going to be 70 years from now. 70 years of a faithful service in front of the enemy. You may be faced with an enemy right now. Maybe a belligerent boss, a teacher you're not getting along with, a professor, a boss, a spouse, okay? Mom or dad or whatever that you're hitting up against. It's been like this. Maybe it's going to turn like this real soon, okay? And all at once you're saying, God, how long does this have to last? How long am I on this? And the idea is, as long as I want you there. Thank you very much. It is not for you to figure out how long. It's how you're doing while you're there. Continue on for my good. As you look toward your own life, as your own country, the idea is continue on, till I say to the stop. Enough said for one day. Let's stand as we pray. Lord God, we ask you this day to help us, because all of us, Father, are away from home in one sense or another. Father, we may be in a new school. We may be in a new relationship. We may be in a new job. We may be in a new situation where we have to make a choice on something, but it's new to us. And it's a new environment. And Father, the world wants to shape us into its mold. And we read your word, and it's a total different mold. Father, we ask you that we would metamorphosize ourselves into what you called us to be and not what the world is demanding out of us. That we would do it in a certain way, Father, that literally they would have to look and see the wonder of it and want it for themselves rather than us fighting and trying to drive it through their esophagus. God, we ask you right now that you would help us have the wisdom of how to live a Christian life in the real world away from home. Father, help us to do your will this day. And all God's people said, amen.